Welcome to the Not All Love and Light podcast with your host, Romy Moreno.
Welcome, astrologer Daniel Jude, to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you.
You're
Doing
welcome.
great. What's up?
I'm doing amazing. So glad to have you on. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do?
Well, I'm an astrologer. I use a little bit of numerology, a lot of different uh, esoteric knowledge as well within my readings. That's what I mainly do. I give readings to people that are wanting to look into the themes that they have going on within their life, or to find out a little bit more about themselves through their natal chart.
I love that. So why don't you tell us a little bit what esoteric readings, that's what you said, right?
Well, esoteric knowledge. So that's a little bit more like, some people use the word occult, some people use esoteric, but things like the Hermetic principles, or just overall knowledge that that can be seen as hidden knowledge. So philosophical things of that nature.
All the Scorpio energy stuff.
Pretty much. Scorpio, some Sag, a little bit of everything.
Yeah. So yeah, because I'm sure a lot of people are listening right now and they don't know what that is. That could be a new terminology for them. So I just wanted you to elaborate on that a little bit more. You have looked at my chart and you've helped me figure some things out. So why don't you tell us a little bit about where this year is going and anything you want to share with the collective, astrological wise?
Well, when it comes to the collective, that's actually something that I don't go into as much, just because my readings are more on like the personal level, like from person to person. Collectively, I know we're in a year 8, so it's a year of abundance, a year of prosperity. So, that's good, but we're nearing the cycle. So come September, when the energies shift, we'll be going into year 9, which is the end of that cycle. So starting around the fall, collectively, we might feel a heavier, denser energy. There'll probably be a lot of transformative events, happening, that sort of thing. Yeah.
I'm so over it.
Scorpio stuff, pretty
I
much.
know, I'm so over it. I just want a break. I feel like I'm getting a little break now that but we have the eclipse coming up, on the 25th. So,
And then the other one on the 8th, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the thing. It all depends on the person's astrology too, on their personal charts. So that's why I mentioned, when it comes to collective readings, it's something I don't look into too much personally. There's so much within the realm of astrology. There's medical astrology. There's childhood astrology. There's so much. So every astrologer is going to gravitate towards their liking, their specialty. And for me, it's more on exactly. And for me, it's more on that psychological, personal level, helping people figure themselves out, and their transits. Because, both of us are Scorpio risings, but our rising degree, where our first house starts, is different. So a particular transit that might be going through my 4th house might actually be in your 3rd house, or vice versa, which are different areas of life.
So let's break it down and dumb it down to a beginner mindset. Like if somebody doesn't know what astrology is and they're just listening to this for the first time, because talking about houses and transits and all of that, that could become so overwhelming, because I know sometimes I get really excited and I start using this terminology with someone that does not know what I'm talking about. They're just looking at me like, okay, you just fucking lost me, and and I go, I know it's a lot. Then I have to circle back. So starting from the beginning, which is pretty much our sun sign. People, pretty much everybody knows what their sun sign is, because that's the one that recognizes whatever. But it could explain as to when you meet a certain person that's a certain sign and you're like, that person is so not that sign. And knowing, once you go deeper into the birth chart and understanding the different placements, that's when things start making sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, for instance, someone might be one sun sign, but they may have a lot of other placements within a different sign. That's kind of with me. I'm a Gemini, but a lot more of my like anyone that knows me very well sees more of the Scorpio in me.
Yeah.
because my moon is in Scorpio, my rising, my Mars and Mercury are in the eighth house, which are the Scorpio house. So, that's how that can play out. That and a few other aspects within a person's chart, like
Right.
how the planets interact with each other as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's just run down like the planets and kind of explain what each planet represents.
All right. So the sun sign. We'll start with the luminaries, the sun and the moon. The sun, when someone asks you what's your sign, that's your sun sign. That's what we've all grown up knowing. That's to me the expression of our ego, the outer expression of it, the fire energy, the divine masculine energy within all of us. It's a very external, extroverted energy, and it's all about self. The moon sign is our internal world, our emotions, how we are in private life, more of the divine feminine energy within all of us, water energy, water element. The and then from there, the rising sign. So when someone asks you what's your big three, it's sun, moon, and rising sign. The rising sign is if you ever see a natal chart, that's where the chart starts, that first house. And that's all about us, the lens that we view the world with, and how the world views us when they first meet us. It's a very public part, so it can uh, rule our appearance, our life force energy, and from there, each house goes in order with each sign. For instance, I'm a Scorpio rising. My second house then is ruled by Sagittarius, the next sign up. And each house is ruled by or it's a different area of life. So, but we'll get into that a little bit later, maybe.
Mhm.
From there, Mercury, which is the way that we think, the way we process information, our communication style. Then Venus. Venus is our aesthetics, the things that we like, the people we like around us, one of our love planets, so our love languages. Then Mars. Mars is how we take action on those things that we desire. Where Venus is what we desire, Mars is how we go after that, our goals or anything that we may desire, our actions, those sort of things. And then we can continue from there, but those are the personal planets. Those are the ones that are most important to that shape us as who we are.
Yeah. With the sun and the rising, what I hear is that people usually go back and forth between that energy. And that's why they're able to, you could see certain aspects of the sun and certain aspect of the rising, but the rising is how people view you, right? And an astrologer told me once that once you've matured, you're really going to embody that rising sign. What are
That's
your thoughts on
something
that?
that's something that depending on the astrologer.
Hmm.
So for instance, that's something that I've heard that before, but I haven't necessarily looked into that too much just because I feel like I embody both. Um, I will say that I did feel maybe a little bit more Gemini earlier on in life, but I'm talking about like early childhood. I look back at old uh, home movies, videotapes, or whatever from when I was a child, and I'm like jumping around everywhere, like just a whole bunch of energy. But that's children in general. And then as I've gone through life, I see more of that Scorpio within me. Maybe that, there's something to be said about the way life works sometimes and like the like adulthood and the less of that freedom, that need to pretty much play and nurture your inner child.
Yeah. Well, I've learned, I know we haven't got into this part, but really working with Chiron, we could do a lot of inner work and inner child work when we get to Chiron.
Yeah, there's that's the beauty of astrology. At the same time, as a Gemini, that's one of the places where especially at the beginning when we're learning these things, it can put us in a like an overthinking process. What I mean by that is, and where I was going with that is that there are so many ways to get a particular answer.
Hmm.
So it could be through Chiron, it could be through the sun sign, because the sun is that Leo inner child, fun sort of energy. We can look into the fifth house, and then we can look at certain aspects. So, for instance, I have a friend that when she was first getting into astrology, or at least on a deeper level, she would ask me so many questions. And she would ask me, um, or what does this mean? Or what does that mean? And she didn't know her rising sign. She didn't know her birth time yet at that time. So she was trying to figure it out so rigorously. And she would look at certain transits and tell me, oh, then I must be this because this is affecting me in this way. And then I'd tell her, yes, but not necessarily because you can get that with, A, B, or C, like with this transit in this house, or it could be an aspect, or it could be a number of different things. And that's just something that I've learned
Poor
throughout
girl.
my
She
15
thought she was
years.
getting ahead. Like, I'm figuring it out. And here comes Daniel. Like, no, sorry. That could just
So you have to burst that bubble. Exactly.
Did she ever figure out her birth time?
She did.
Oh, okay.
And actually we were her friends, and some of the her astrologer friends, we were all like, we all had our like guesses,
Yeah.
and I had a dark horse guess. There was a time where I was like really trying to research it, and with the information that she had given me and just knowing her, and I told her, you know what, Virgo rising is my dark horse guess. Like it could very much well be that. And then at some point, like it was too much for me and I had to take a break. And eventually, when she found her birth time, she was Virgo rising.
Yeah. I love that. Sometimes I'm able to guess people so much, and they're just like, how did you know? I go, but for me, not only do I study them and just see certain things, but I just feel that energy. Like, I'll think this recently happened with somebody that I hadn't even talked to yet. We would just see each other and then we communicated like on Instagram. And I go, I feel like Taurus energy from him. And then I come to find out he's a Taurus moon.
Hmm. Exactly.
So things like that, like I just feel, I guess intuitively, like I just feel sometimes what they have, like what placements. I
Yeah.
just love it. I
Each
just love being able to use astrology for my clients and helping them find healing and their life purpose and all of that using their chart.
exactly. Yeah, it's a beautiful tool. And that's what I tell people. Some people are under the impression that astrologers or people that are into astrology are giving so much energy into it, but really it's to be looked at as a tool. It's not the end all be all.
Right.
Like we were talking about earlier this week, one of the transits that I've just recently found out about, even though I've been looking into my charts for 15 years, um, where the sun going through each house, through each area of life, there being 12 signs, 12 houses, and then 12 months, you can break it up into 12 seasons. So this same time next year, when the sun is in Pisces, it's in the same house for me. Not only that, the sun is forming certain relationships with the other planets. And based on that, there could be challenges or lucky moments or things of that nature. And I just realized because I was thinking about last year, the same time of year, and then this year, some of the things I was going through, and I realized, okay, this is a
There's a
theme this
pattern.
particular week out of the year. Exactly.
Yeah, it was just so funny because we're both Scorpio risings and we were supposed to record earlier in the week. And I don't like to show up to anything unless I'm feeling 100%. And I just got a feeling, I was like, I'm sure if I text him, he's feeling the same way for some reason. And just
Mhm.
receiving your message, I'm so happy you said that.
Exactly. Yeah, when you mentioned what you did, I'm like I knew.
Yeah,
I already knew.
yeah. And then you just went off to explain to me as what's going on in astrology, astrologically. And I'm just like, Okay, got it. Then I send it to my other friend that's also a Scorpio rising, and she was like, "Oh my God, this makes so much sense."
Hmm. Exactly. It's very interesting, like I said, tool to have at our disposal to really get to know ourselves, our purpose, and those working with clients to help guide others, or even if it's not clients, even if it's someone that's just enthusiastic about astrology, being able to help their loved ones.
Right. And I feel like, of course, with anything, we do have free will. It's just like more of a blueprint. Because sometimes I'll read something. Two apps that I always recommend. I just want to put it out here. I don't get anything from these apps. I just think they're great tools to use is time passages and the pattern. I love the pattern because you could run bonds with people and you could really go into your chart. A lot of people like CoStar. I think that that's a terrible shit app and you should delete it. But those two apps are amazing. I forgot where I was going with this. What were we talking about before?
About I guess just using astrology as a tool in the transits.
Okay.
But I mean,
So I got it. So in the pattern, when I'm running a bond with somebody and I'm reading certain things of like, if you're struggling, it could be because you, and when I read the description, I could see how unhealed Romy could react that way. Right. I'm like,
mhm,
I definitely was like that at some point of my life, but I've done enough work to be able to have more awareness and not go there.
exactly.
That's why I feel like it's just a blueprint. It just makes sense. And I think it's a beautiful thing because, like you mentioned, our six personal planets. If you know somebody's Venus and their moon sign, you know how it's like a love language. You're able
Hmm.
to show them love or communicate with them because of Mercury. If you're having a disagreement, just know how to speak to them. And I just think it's such a great tool to learn in order for us to get to know ourselves better, but also have better relationships.
Yep, you hit the nail on the head. So for the longest time, I was mainly looking into my chart and maybe a few close friends that were also interested. But once I did my deep dive into the spiritual community, found my tribe, so to speak, over the past close coming up on 3 years now.
Hey, it's me, Romy. I want to share a moment with you. You know, we often talk about healing, growth, and doing the work on this podcast. But where do you start? When you're feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges, trapped in the past, worried about the future, or like you're constantly battling your own thoughts and emotions. Living in a reactive state versus response, passing up opportunities because of lack of confidence and fear, not knowing how to set boundaries with others, but most importantly with yourself. That's why I created my Healing the Root Cause program. It's for those out there feeling overwhelmed and yearning for change, connection, authenticity. Pretty much, you're tired of your own shit. Together, using my proven root framework, we'll recognize your triggers, overcome the past, operate with confidence, and transform your life. As I say, it's not all love and light, and this healing journey is about confronting the shadows and embracing the mess, but still loving yourself through it all. I'll be right there with you, guiding you on this journey, every raw moment, every breakthrough, every step of the way. So if you're feeling that tug and want to apply to work with me, fill out the application in the show notes and we'll see if we're a good fit for each other and take it from there. Either way, I'm rooting for you.
One of the aspects of astrology that I've learned the most is synastry. And synastry is the study of putting two people's charts together and seeing how their charts match up, how their planets interact with each other. And even before that, with some of my closest friends that I did study their charts, I realized certain patterns or why some people were certain ways or why we would communicate in different styles. But then over this past 3 years, getting to know so many people at all these different events, all these holistic shops, friends that I've made, etc. I've had as a I don't know, as I would call a psycho spiritual sort of astrologer, meaning that I'm very interested in the psychology of people and personality profiles, things of that nature. Just seeing my interactions with people and seeing certain patterns. Like I know certain, Mercury signs that I don't do well with, and I know why. Or
Where's your Mercury?
mine's is in Cancer in the eighth house.
Mm.
So for instance, some fire Mercuries may not be the best.
Those
Is
Aries
it
Mercuries.
Aries Mercury? Mercury in Sagittarius is the one that I have the most experience with.
Hmm.
For good reason, because that's the thing in my chart, since I'm Scorpio heavy, a lot of the people that I tend to meet that have other Scorpio placements end up becoming prominent people within my life. And sometimes, since Mercury is so close to the sign of Scorpio, Sagittarius is so close to the sign of Scorpio, and Mercury stays just in its same sign as the sun or one sign away. So, for instance, someone as yourself that's a Scorpio sun, your Mercury can only be in Scorpio, Sagittarius, or Libra.
Okay.
So I have a lot of experience with people that have a lot of Scorpio placements, but also Mercury and Sagittarius.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because since you have a lot of experience with the Sagittarius Mercury and your Mercury is in Cancer, they're descending signs. So I feel like there's something there to say about being opposites, but also compatible in some way.
Well, with Sagittarius, the opposite would be Gemini,
Oh, that's right. I don't even know why I thought of that.
but it's close because it's in conjunct. In conjunct is another, it's
Yeah,
pretty much
yeah,
like 5 signs away. So
yeah.
it's still like it's almost an opposite, but not quite, but
Mhm.
it can come off that way or feel that way.
Mhm.
And since Mercury does not like being in Sagittarius, because it can be a little,
Yeah,
blunt, very forward, and then my Mercury in Cancer is all Cancer-like,
yeah. I don't
it's
know.
not
I
necessarily the
just got
best.
confused. I don't know why I was thinking Capricorn and Sagittarius because Cancer is Capricorn descendant.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, but so that's the other interesting thing now that we're getting into that is each sign has its what's known as the sister sign. It's its opposite sign. And when you look at it that way, you can see the balance. Um, and each sister sign is on an axis. Like for instance, the Pisces and Virgo, they're opposite of each other, but they're on pretty much the service axis. They're both signs that are very much about serving, being of service, where Pisces is more about the collective, Virgo is more about, the grounded energy,
Yeah.
where where Virgo is all about control and having things in order, things having to be a certain way and all about the details. Pisces is the complete opposite, very go with the flow,
The
does
Lulu
not
and
know what the
Yana
word
Land.
control is.
Oh my God.
Exactly. So when you know these things and you look into your chart, and a lot of us have oppositions or planets in one sign, but in the house of that other sign, um, we can see where there are some of those balances that were meant to play out in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And when you know each sign and its opposites, and like for instance, people that have that's for you, your moon in Aries. So people that have prominent Aries placements,
I
part of
love
this
them.
lifetime
I love them.
is is probably meant to learn patience
Yeah.
because Aries.
That was I have so much patience now. I have so much patience. It's insane the amount of patience that I have. And as an Aries moon, that's not something easy that I had to learn at all because I would go from 0 to 100 real quick,
Mhm.
real quick. And I never understood. I started getting into astrology when I did my yoga teacher training. And that's when I learned about what the birth chart was and all of that. And when my ex-husband, he is an Aries and he's very chill, very calm, very patient. Like the description of what I would read for Aries. And then I have another friend that's also in Aries. So she was very similar to him. So in my head, I didn't think Aries were what Aries actually are, right? But once I pulled his chart, I realized he has a Cancer moon and a Gemini rising. And I had the
Hmm.
Aries because sometimes I would read Aries, I'm like, that doesn't sound like you, that sounds like me, but I
Exactly.
wouldn't say anything. But once I learned that, and I told him every time I would come across something Aries, I'm like, read this. Does this sound like you or me? That's totally you. I'm like, this is for Aries.
Hmm.
He's so for sure more like in that Cancer and Gemini energy for sure
Exactly.
you know? And
Yeah.
imagine my reaction when I found out I was married with somebody Gemini. No offense, you got a
None
lot of stuff you're
taken.
facing. But
Hmm.
remember my reaction when you're like, oh, because I'm a Gemini. I'm like, hi. Hi.
Exactly.
I
Yeah,
try
I
not to
remember.
judge, but oh my God, I read this thing that said that there's there's people that discriminate based on your zodiac.
Exactly. No, it's true. And see, that's the thing. I get it. Like sometimes Gemini energy is too much for me. Like someone that has a lot of Gemini energy, even though I'm a Gemini sun, since I have a lot of fixed placements, my Venus is in Taurus, I have all those Scorpio placements, etc. You know, it's I see where the Gemini in me is, but at the same time, it's an energy that is totally different from who I am.
Mhm.
So some people that may have their sun, Mercury, and rising in Gemini, a lot of prominent Gemini, I trust me, I totally get it. But it's not to say that, not to generalize. It's again, it all goes back to the individual person, their chart, their experience, their evolution throughout life, their healing, their growth that they've had and how they interact with certain placements. So, for instance, I have a lot of people in my life that have that Mercury Sagittarius, and I've learned how to deal with that profile, and I have beautiful friendships with these people. But I just know, or at least in my experience and where I'm at throughout my evolution, that if it gets to such a close level of whether it's a relationship or a super close friendship or maybe a business partnership, eventually that's going to clash.
Yeah,
So I know how to proceed from there pretty much.
yeah.
Not to say that I'm going to exit them, X them out of my life or anything of that nature.
But I have to admit, Gemini moons, I love Gemini moons.
There you go. See? So that you just explained it very beautifully. Where Gemini Sun may not be, you may not have the best experiences with them, but you have realized that you have great experiences with Gemini moons because Gemini and Aries are compatible energies. So the emotional profile of you and a Gemini moon, it just matches.
I realized recently that air moons and I I have
Hmm.
to keep them at a distance.
And why is that?
I feel like there's a lot of flakiness. No offense to anybody that has an air moon, but I guess, I don't know, maybe you could elaborate as to why that is.
So see, you just said that you enjoy Gemini moon, but at the same time you said that you have to stay away from them because of the flakiness. So emotionally, you feel that emotional compatibility, but then remember that that Gemini moon is not the best energy for all the Scorpio you have in your chart.
Hmm.
All that Scorpio you have is fixed energy. It's all about stability, all about the long term, all about longevity. And so, for instance, a Gemini moon is totally not that.
Yeah, I
It's
could get
about
no, I love air moons in the sense that I could totally like get along with them. Maybe
exactly.
even, but like you said with the Mercury, like keeping them so close in proximity, I guess depending on their other placements also, I've noticed that I get a little frustrated. I get frustrated because it's like get your shit together, bro. Like, keep your word. Do what you're gonna say you're gonna do, and just show up.
Exactly. Yep. Trust me, I totally get it. It's like within my chart, like certain placements go great with a certain sign, but since my planets are so spaced out in my chart, so for instance, I have a lot of experience with people that have so for instance, Venus and Scorpio, because that goes well with my moon and my rising sign, but then that naturally is opposite my Venus and Taurus. So it's kind of like a catch 22 where there's beauty in it, but then there can also be some friction or some tension, because that's something that I naturally have in my chart. My moon in Scorpio naturally opposes my Venus in Taurus.
Mhm.
So it's not only a personal thing, but also with people that may have that placement, it's all, like I said, it's all about the evolution and the growth that we're in and how we interact with certain energies. So for some of my um, personality profile, some of my planets, I love those Scorpio placements. But then there's always going to be that sort of, tension there, you know, with my Venus at least.
Yeah. I mean, I recently read that we should, not we should, you can do whatever you want, but it's a good idea if somebody has the same Venus placement you have in their Mars and vice versa.
So, as I mentioned, synastry is one of those things that I've learned the most of in astrology over the past few years. And so I've learned some of those, some of the spicy,
Get into
synastry
it. Get into
aspects,
it. Get into
get, getting into
it.
the tea. So I've, the spicy ones, the good ones that are for longevity, the ones that are chemistry. So here's the thing with chemistry. I fell into that trap of, oh, if I feel a certain chemistry or if I feel something with someone, that must mean A, B, or C.
Mhm.
When really, when we look at in astrology, what's known as a square, which is pretty much when two planets or signs, etc., are at 90 degrees from each other. So, for instance, Scorpio and Aquarius or Leo. Aquarius and Leo square my Scorpio and Taurus placement. So it's all fixed energy, but it's almost like an actual opposite energy. So it causes friction and tension that can make us feel that chemistry. And even on a biological level, I've realized I feel like that energy is what's responsible for population growth in early humanity because it causes that chemistry, that want of desire, that need to procreate. And, it leads to that. And it leads to fast procreation because those same squares that cause that chemistry, also are not the best for the long run because it's just so much tension. So it leads to, you know, breakups or just going on to the next thing. So biologically going on to the next partner, for instance.
Yeah. It's so funny because in my healing journey now, like before when I would feel that chemistry, I would be like, oh my God, this has to mean something, like you said, right? Now I'm just like, Now I'm more discerned when I'm start feeling that like, this is not healthy. I can be calm.
A little bit of it is healthy and is needed, but a lot of it can be chaotic. So for instance, I've met people within my life, women that I've felt that attraction to and then realized, oh wow, we have a ton of squares. So it's like, okay, I feel that chemistry, I feel that attraction, but it's
I'm not
not,
gonna go there.
it's exactly why tempt that? I know better because I know where that leads, you
Yeah.
know? Um, so yeah, so that Mars Venus conjunction, like when they're this, like for instance, someone with a Mars in Aries and the other person with the Venus in Aries, or that same sign, it's one of the spicy aspects to have in synastry. It's a great one. Um, One thing that people need to look into more are the Saturn aspects, because Saturn is all about longevity. It's all about karma.
Um,
So if there's like a sun in a bad, compatibility with someone's Saturn or the moon over time, well, let's say moon square Saturn is not great for the moon person's emotional state in the long run. They may feel great at the beginning, but then over time they may feel like they can't emote, like they can't speak about their emotions, so they start hiding and withdrawing that part of themselves, and they may not feel like they can be themselves really. But someone that has two people that have a great Saturn moon chemistry, that over time it's only going to get better and better.
So you said sun and moon. So if you have like a Scorpio sun and someone has a Saturn in Scorpio, that would mean longevity in the relationship.
Sometimes it depends. Like for instance, the sextile and the trine are a little bit lighter in energy because Saturn can be a very strong energy. So if it's conjunct, it can get better over time, but there may be challenges along the way. So for instance, if someone has a sun, for instance, in Gemini, and the other person has Saturn in, let's say, Libra, that gets better over time, but at the same time, it's in a lighter way.
So the
So
descendings, not if they're the same.
some planets is great if it's the same. So that's the other thing. There's these complexities and nuances to certain planets. Some planets are so powerful that sometimes a conjunction may not be great. Like where the Venus and Mars conjunction is great, someone that has like a Moon and Pluto conjunction, like a couple that has that conjunction, that might be felt too strongly or it'd be very polarizing.
So
It's
Pluto and Moon, you said?
yes. So the two water planets, both ruling emotions, but Pluto is such a dense, heavy, intense energy, that Scorpio energy, that there could be like Pluto conjunct Moon could be a lot of emotional outbursts, but at the same time, a lot of emotional depth. So that intense emotional experience, but very polarizing, where you may feel that sacrificial Scorpio sort of love, but at the same time feel that intense depth of emotions when things aren't going great.
Mm. Since we are talking about these other planets, I think you should just explain too, like what they represent, because I know the six personal planets, we are the ones we work with the most, but these other planets, they're so important to look at too, especially for the healing journey.
Yes, very true. So where I left off, Saturn. Saturn, or actually, yeah, Saturn. Saturn is all about our responsibilities, about duty, about mastery. There's something to be said about which house it's in for you in your chart, and especially as you get to your Saturn return around the age of 29 or so. Um, Jupiter is kind of like our lucky energy within our chart. It's all about optimism. So whatever sign it's in, whatever house it's in, is an area that we need to take more risks in, and where the universe rewards us if we step into that energy. So both Saturn and Jupiter can be seen as social planets because they take a while to transit around the sun, but not nearly as long as the outer planets. The outer planets are looked at as generational planets. So Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Those for for instance, Uranus transit is 7 years through each sign. So people born from, within the 7 year time span from when Uranus goes into one sign and exits, that's seen as a more generational sort of energy that everyone within that 7 year time span has. The important thing to look at within your chart with Uranus is which house it's in, because that's the way it impacts you. and the aspects that are being formed. So Uranus is, it's Aquarius energy. It's a very volatile energy as well. Very surprising, can be very rebellious. Um, when I picture Uranus, I picture a lightning bolt because you don't know when or where it's going to strike, and you don't know if it's going to be for better or for worse. So wherever Uranus is in your chart, or whatever transit or aspect you have going on with Uranus, you can expect surprises within that area of life. Um, and it also speaks to ideas, originality, because it's an energy that is seen as ahead of its time. Neptune is Piscean energy. So it's all about spirituality, fantasy, escapism, addiction. Each sign, each planet has its expression of light and expression of shadow. So it's good to know each one as well, for those going through the astrological journey of wanting to learn. And then Pluto. Pluto is that Scorpio energy. It's all about endings and beginnings, death, rebirth, and transformation. Pluto and Saturn are seen as the heaviest energies within the zodiac, where Venus and Jupiter are seen as the most light, the most benefic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's funny because they say like Pluto is Scorpio, but then also Mars. So I feel like I have
Yes.
a lot because my big three is all Mars placement.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So it's that you bring an
And
interesting
when I
point.
say that I've had to learn patience,
Which house is your Mars in?
my Mars is in the fourth house.
And Pluto in your first, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's this thing known as the chart ruler. So you as a Scorpio rising, a modern astrologer will tell you that your chart ruler is in the first house. A traditional astrologer would tell you it's in the fourth house. So in traditional astrology, it stops right before Uranus. So Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto aren't necessarily taken into account when it comes to certain rulerships. So, for instance, a traditional astrologer would tell you that Scorpio is ruled by Mars. Um, Traditional astrologer is going to tell you that Scorpio is ruled by Pluto and co-ruled by Mars.
Yeah,
So
because a
there's
lot of people get confused with that. So I just honestly, I take the energy from both because I could feel the energy from both planets.
exactly, yeah, especially you with Moon in Aries and then Scorpio and Sun in
When I tell
Scorpio.
people my big three and they know, they look at me like, damn. I go, I am very well composed to know.
I've done a lot of work to, where I'm at right now.
Exactly. And that's what it goes back to what I was saying earlier, using it as a blueprint and being able to, because there's the uninvolved versions of each signs and then the evolved versions of each sign. And we
Exactly.
get into that because unevolved Scorpio could be very vindictive, very jealous, very you know, revenge is like top priority. And I could tell you that when I was very unhealed, yeah, that was me. I would literally say things to people that I know would freaking scar them for life. And
Hmm.
it was so easy for me. Like I could just look at them and be like, bam, and they're just scarred for life.
Yep.
Right. And
Yeah.
and honestly, the evolved version of Scorpio could be very healing and very
Hmm.
like going in depth and very loyal. And that's more the energy where I'm at. I won't say that the thoughts do not arise
Exactly.
because it's I always say like in the movie Mean Girls when they had like that when Lindsay Lohan has that vision of the girls cat fight
Hmm.
in the cafeteria, but it didn't really happen. That happened so much where I think something and all I say is like, wow, I could have really gone there and I've evolved so much.
Hmm.
But
Exactly.
then because Aries could be very impulsive, right? That's still something that I'm working on. I've gotten very, very, very conscious about that and aware. But sometimes I get really excited and I do or I say something that I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I'm sorry. It could be very it's more when I get excited, that I just blank out. I'm not thinking. And it could come off as very, very selfish and very like offer me, which Aries is the baby of the zodiac, and
Hmm.
it's all about me and da 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 da. So I could see how I'm still working in that where I'm very bratty. And that honestly, I have no problem with that. My close friends accept me as I am, and they just fucking just allow me to be. And they almost like encourage it. They're like, I know you're bratty. I'm gonna get you what you want, especially when it comes to food. Like, just I always have to send food back. It's just a joke by now. Like some of my friends,
Hmm.
like, let me guess, there's something wrong with it. I'm just but like I'm really, so I know I'm bratty. So whoever I end up with in a relationship, they have to accept that part of me because I don't feel it's harmful. I'm not bratty to
Hmm.
the point where I'm just like, I don't care about your feelings. It's my way and my way only when I used to be that way. I did not care.
Exactly.
Not care what you want. It's all about me. I am not bratty in that sense. My Aries energy is very, I could get that impulse. I could take action very fast. I could be very headstrong and bratty.
Yeah. I mean, damn, where do I begin? Because you just said a lot that I want to answer to. Um, yes, that next person that you're with does have to accept that part of you, and I feel like that's something that we need. That's good to learn within our own charts, knowing which parts of us are truly us to the core, and learning to accept that, integrate it instead of trying to change it, so to speak. Yes, we can balance out certain energies, but there's only so much balancing you can do until you're pretty much changing yourself to someone who you're not. So that's not ever going to be a good outcome in the long run. So there's that aspect of it. The second one, and knowing the why, at least for me as a Gemini, that's one of the things that got me into astrology in the first place, and especially into the transits, is having that information, knowing the why. Why am I like this, or why do I feel this way when A, B, or C happens? Why do I feel this way during this time? So checking the transits, what's going on. Um, so yeah, there's that. Then when you were talking about Scorpio, uh, I definitely understand it. And remember, I think both of us are kind of scarred when we say our big three,
Yeah.
because Aries, can get a bad rep as well. But there's been times where I've said, oh, my big three is Gemini Sun, Scorpio Moon, Scorpio Rising. And I literally had someone once turn around and run out of the holistic shop I was in. So, and that was someone that was into astrology. It's just the misconceptions or the things that person may have experienced. But I totally get it because Scorpio can also be a very intense, and it can be a toxic, chaotic energy when it's in its shadow, when it's unevolved, as you were speaking. Same with me. There's things within my charts that I feel like a lot of those vindictive, toxic traits of Scorpio aren't really expressed in my outer world. I view myself as a different scorpionic person in that way, not but a lot of it is more internal. So I may have certain thoughts. And the times that I have thought about revenge or things of that nature, like what happened recently. Recently, over sometime a few months ago, I got to a place that I haven't been to in such a long time, and it reminded me how potent of an energy Scorpio can be and how potent that venom is. Because if it wants to strike, it it can do a lot of damage, like you said. But then the thing we have to remember is in that shadow expression. that stinger, that venom is not only striking that other person, but it's striking us. Because holding that much venom and that much vindictive energy within ourselves, like it goes through our body,
It
through
consumes
our
us.
energy.
It consumes.
Exactly.
And I know because that's how man, and it came so it comes very easy. Because I'm not gonna say it came, because like I said, the thoughts still arise. And in those moments, I just see how far I've gone because I wouldn't take action unless I could say something happened October 2022 where
Mm,
Unhealed Romy and Scorpio like came out. And it was basically because I was completely betrayed. I was completely not I was lied to. I wasn't my they put me in a situation where you're not even thinking about anybody else but yourself. And I'm a mom with kids. It this person put me in a situation where I could have gotten in trouble if I would have stayed around, right? And I
hmm
and I felt so lied to because we decided to go into a project together, and it was just lies from the beginning. And when I found out what this person was doing behind my back, everything went out the fucking door.
hmm
Because you're not getting away with this. Because I know that me exposing your ass is going to also help other people. So as much as it was like a very Scorpio energy of like fuck you, it was also I felt good about it because I was protecting other people because there was other people that were involved that could have ended up in really fucked up situation, people with families, right? So in that like, and I remember as I was doing like exposing her and whatever, I'm like I'm really, and I'm very in my Aries and Scorpio were going like this because I was being
hmm
very impulsive, but also like fuck you, like
hmm
you don't do this to people, right? And that was like years that I've done something like that. And honestly, I didn't feel bad about it after because something about me, like people always get their karma. They always think that
Yep.
I'm doing witchcraft, but they're literally just doing it to themselves. Like, I don't have time to
hmm
let no candle in your name. Like, get out of here.
Exactly.
like,
That's
like shit takes care of itself.
exactly.
I'm
No,
not
I
the
feel
one to
that
fuck
from
with. I'm not the one to fuck.
exactly. I feel very much a similar thing with myself, and I do feel that it is a scorpionic energy. And especially more, I feel like in an evolved way, when we let our spirit guides, take over, or we let karma let it do its thing, where knock on wood, I've been in my life, anytime anyone has really wanted to do any sort of damage to me or harm me in any way or anything of that nature, and they've been in my life, whether it's been a coworker or, whomever. And people that know me know that I'm a easy person to get along with. So sometimes it's like, okay, why does this person have it out for me? Like, what the hell did I do? So I'm not
Exist.
the type of person to like, exactly. I just exist, you know.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, if someone wants to do that sort of harm to me, I've been fortunate enough that that person exits my life without me having to do anything. Whether if it's a coworker, I've had the situation where I've gotten a better job offer at a different job, and poof, that person's out of my life.
Hmm.
Or also within another job, in this other example that I'm thinking of, this person ended up getting fired from the job. So just things
Where's
of
your
that nature
Saturn? What house is your Saturn in?
in the first.
In the first. Okay, because I found something out recently and it makes so much sense that I'm like, yes. So where Saturn is in your house not only affects you personally, but also other people's karma. So
Hmm
people that fuck with you, like that's where it's gonna hurt. So being that I have Saturn in my second house and I've seen the pattern of when someone betrays me or goes behind my back and intentionally like does shit to me, it hurts their pocket.
Hmm.
They lose
Exactly.
businesses, they end up in jail. Their business goes down the freaking toilet mostly. So it hurt that material wealth of theirs along with that second house energy. And I've also noticed that when people bless me, I get goosebumps just talking about it, that they're rewarded in that
Hmm.
way too. So I'm like, if you like money, you better fucking be nice to me and don't fuck with me because it's gonna hurt your pocket one way or another. You're either gonna be blessed or you're gonna freaking do shit to yourself.
Exactly.
And then oh, she does witchcraft. No, I don't. I literally do not have to do anything. You did this to yourself.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah, karma, like you said.
So that was really something really cool that I found out, and I was like, yes, I love this for me. I love this.
Yeah, be nice to me so that you can reap the rewards,
Exactly.
or
So now I
you
have
know,
friends that know this and they're like always like, and I'm like, you're gonna
nice to
be
you.
so rewarded. I love it. And then
Hmm.
people that don't know this, they're gonna find out the hard way.
Exactly.
I
Yeah,
love it.
sometimes it's very, I mean, astrology is beautiful in its complexities and in its depth. So for people that have scorpionic placements, that's one of the placements that I've seen for astrologers or people that are very enthusiastic about astrology. Sometimes or a lot of times we'll have certain scorpionic traits because it's all about that depth and that digging, that detective work and
Yeah.
going layer by layer. And that's what astrology is. I've been learning I've been, yeah, learning astrology for 15 years, and I'm still learning things about my chart.
Yeah. There's so much to learn though. There's so much to learn and the whole Scorpio thing. I love that I'm a Scorpio. I love my Scorpio placements. I feel it's such a gift in the work that I do because I
Exactly.
could just look at someone and I just know exactly where I need to tap into to go in a little bit deeper in order for them to heal and find themselves and be able, when it comes to dating, it scares people off that aren't ready to look within themselves. So it's a catch 22 because it's like I don't want to date somebody like that anyways, but then, finding that person that's like yeah. I have a friend that she calls me an obsidian, that
Mm,
that I'm
hmm.
like an obsidian crystal because I could be very grounding, but I'm going to make you look at your shit and it's going to bring all your shit out. But in a loving way, in a loving, gentle way,
Exactly.
just so you could become the best version of yourself. And I
Exactly.
feel like that's the beautiful energy of Scorpio once we're evolved because that unhealed
Yes.
Romy, she's scary.
It's a very polarizing energy,
Yeah.
which, by the way, people that are listening to this episode that have Scorpio placements, they're gonna love it just because we're going so deep into it. Some others might be like, I can't relate. But so that obsidian reference, I love it. It's so true. And Scorpio is such a healing sort of energy. And that's where it's polarizing. Those toxic, chaotic traits that we were talking about of the unevolved Scorpio, it's so intense, but it could also be intense on the other end of the spectrum, on the healing end, where where Aries, the other sign ruled by Mars, when we're looking at Mars ruling both Aries and Scorpio, Aries is more of an external energy, where Scorpio is more of an internal energy. So the way that I look at Mars, it's kind of like the warrior of the external world, the warrior that you can see on the outside, where Scorpio is the warrior within. Not a lot of people see the battles that people that have scorpionic placements go through, but I feel that it's for a reason. We go through a lot of those intense energies and trauma throughout life in order to go through our healing process and then in order to help heal others. And that's where the beauty of that energy has manifested in my life, where I'm in a position now that I'm able to help others that may not know all this information. I look into their charts where we talk and I'm able to help guide them or help them in their healing process, whether they have a lot of scorpionic placements themselves or whether they're going through a scorpionic, plutonic sort of transit in within their life at that current time. I understand that energy so well that I'm able to relate to that person and let them know what's going on and give them that, not only that guidance, but that reassurance that something is happening for only a certain period of time and that I understand what they're going through, et cetera, et cetera. And, it's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. That's why it's also very important to know what house each planet is in, because everything plays a role. But this has been amazing. Let everybody know where they could find you and connect with you if they want to get a reading. Or I know a lot of people are getting to the synastry charts. So where can people find you?
Well, the easiest way to find me is on Instagram. If you type Daniel Jude, Jude is Jude. I am actually rebranding my page because I am offering more than just astrology. So as of the recording of this episode, I have my page as one name, but once this episode is aired, it'll be a different one. So since I don't have that name yet, it's either Magic of Daniel Jude or The Magic of Daniel Jude. The easiest way to find me is just Daniel Jude.
Okay, it'll be linked in the show notes.
Okay, perfect.
But yeah, I definitely love this conversation. I'm all about this astrology life. I love when people say astrology isn't real, and I'm like, and then I guess their sign, and I'm like,
Exactly.
But is there anything else you want to let our listeners know before we wrap up?
I don't think so. Just, if you resonate with my energy or anything that I've said, if you'd like a reading, it's for a reason, it's for a purpose. I tend to attract people into my readings that, again, like I mentioned, are either going through scorpionic time within their life or that may want to know more about what themes they're going through, or they have those sort of energies within their own chart themselves. So feel free to reach out. I'd love to help answer any questions. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. Remember, guys, it's not all love and light.